All right, the edge rankings unveiled last week by Christopher Sims. Jalen Phillips at number 1. Let's start with him.
Yeah.
What put him above the rest on your list?
Well, like best pure pass rusher in the draft. And again, I'm not all about like, sacks, everything like that. But just when you talk about like the most explosive first step coming off the edge, it's Jalen Phillips. The guy who can like come around the edge, Mike, and you see this, right? Those guys that can really rush the passer, they have that ability to like bend themselves as they go around the corner. He does all of that stuff like really naturally, let alone he's just an explosive, big, powerful man. Like reminded me of like JPP coming out of South Florida. Of course, the Giants picked him in the top 10 or 12, right around there. It's a lot that way, Mike, and doesn't mess around. Like, I'm big into like, what do your bad plays look like? His bad plays are stalemates at the line of scrimmage against tackles. But, man, can he get off blocks, Mike? He throws tight ends around. He is, forget like about production because that gets overrated with this sack stuff too much. His disruption, his F the play up ability is real to go along with it. To me, clear cut, the number 1 edge guy in the draft, Mike. But he does have a little concussion history, and that'll be the question as we go forward here because he went to UCLA, he sat out a year of football, and then came back to Miami.
Broader observation here, I think the hardest position to assess heading into any draft is edge rusher because how do you ever properly factor in the quality of the left tackle or right tackle that the pass rusher is trying to get around? How do you factor that into your analysis when it's possible it's just a big, slow guy that will never make it in the NFL that this guy is running circles around?
No. I mean, that's why you try to go to games, too, where you look at it and go, wait, this guy he's going against is going to be in the NFL. Okay, here's the Clemson game. This guy's going to be in the NFL. Okay, hey, he's still getting around the edge. All right, that looks pretty good. And then also within that, it's not a perfect formula. You're right. But then when you find those guys that are like, all right, he's playing a team here that doesn't have an NFL tackle. Does he dominate them? Does he lower to their competition and kind of just like fall asleep at the wheel? What does he do? And that's where, Phillips to me dominates no matter who it is. And there are enough NFL tackles you get to see him go against. So you're right. It's never easy. It's not. And again, too, you got to separate that production from disruption and those things, to where too many people, okay, he's got a teammate in Gregory Rousseau, right, who didn't play this last year. The year before that had a bunch of sacks. He's a good player. But there's a difference to me in, again, those guys where, he had a bunch of sacks, but none of those sacks were like he came off the edge and dominated his guy, Mike. It was like the kind of sacks where everybody was covered and the quarterback held it for 5 seconds. Now he got it. Or somebody else missed the sack and now the quarterback had to move and then he got the sack. That's to me where you got to separate the disruption from the production and all of those type of things to try to figure out the position a little bit.
The biggest challenge in that regard, and we'll pivot back to this year's class, I think back to Vernon Goldston.
Sure.
In 2008, right? Vernon Goldston with Jake Long, and he beat Jake Long, and Jake Long was the first overall pick that year. Goldston went 6, and he was just a disaster at the NFL level. And I just think it's so hard to project at every position.
It is.
But I just feel like at this position, it's more difficult than others. All right, take me through the rest of your top 5. And I see Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt guys aren't supposed to make it in the NFL. Why do you have Dayo Odeyingbo at number 5 coming out of Vanderbilt?
Because he can do everything. First off, he's like close to 280 pounds. He's not necessarily like your sack master / edge guy that way, Mike. But, a guy you could kick inside and he could be a pain in the butt on like third downs if he went inside against defensive tackles. But more or not, it's about, again, I think with edge guys, he could play weak side defense end and be a handful with his athleticism and quicks to beat pass rushers that way, but also has like strength, Mike, to where you can make him the strong side DN. And now he's got tight ends and a tackle in front of him, and he can be really good against double teams or dominate those run blocking schemes that way. He tore his Achilles, though, in January. That's going to be a big question for him. But a player that reminded me a lot of Carlos Dunlap, right, who just re-signed back with the Seattle Seahawks. That's who he reminds me of as a player coming out here, Mike.
At number 3 on your list is someone from Penn State who had a grand total of 0 sacks last year.
Yeah.
How do you look past that when you're evaluating the film? And how many did you see? I mean, was it just like a lot of close calls?
Yes.
I know that drives pass rushers crazy when,
right.
Hey, I almost had a sack. Hey, I almost had a sack. Well, yeah, but all that matters is whether you did.
Yeah, well, I know. But, and also, too, with college football, you got to remember it's a different game, too. You got less plays every game where a quarterback drops back, right, and takes a 5 or a 7-step drop, and they sit in the pocket and do that. Think about college football. It's a handoff. It's a handoff. It's a quick screen. Oh, it's a quick screen there. Oh, it's a fake the handoff and throw it over the middle on an RPO. I mean, you could get Lawrence Taylor and put nobody in front of him, and he might go through games that get no sacks in college football at times, the way the game is played. So, yeah, there's a lot of close calls. There really is. There is a lot of hurries and things like that. But here's a guy, too, that, yeah, it might not be about sacks. He reminds me a little bit of a guy like Leonard Floyd, Mike, that way, where you go, whoa, okay, wait, he can get to the quarterback, but that's not like his bread and butter. But, man, he can shoot gaps. He can take on pulling guards and throw them to the side and make the tackle. He gets in pass coverage, and he's as athletic as, like, free safeties and things like that. So that's where his real value as a football player is, Mike. It's a little bit of that Leonard Floyd, Aldon Smith back in those days. Stand up on the edge. I can cover, or I can come off the edge and get to the quarterback, but also be a force in the running game. Really shockingly good football player. I wasn't expecting to see it out of a taller, longer type of guy. Really physical, fun to watch. One of the more fun watches there was this year.
What's your next category of players that you'll be listing?
O-line, baby. The big moo cows. Moo. There's some good ones, too. There is. It's a pretty deep class, and it was not easy. But that will be coming tomorrow on the podcast. Rank the top 5 offensive linemen. Got defensive tackles coming on later in the week. All of that. But yeah, it's been fun. I still got I got some guys to still crack through here. I'm not done. I got some work on my plate.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.